Going to begin with war spending because that was the big news of yesterday. And the great double cross of the British people by its own government continues. And we have the double cross here in this image. Following a statement to the House of Commons yesterday, Keir Starmer made a statement to the press to announce new war spending commitments. And he began by setting out a stall about the danger we all face because of Putin and Russia. So let's just have, if we can bear it, have a listen to this.
And I believe we must now change our approach to national security, so we are ready to meet the challenges of our volatile world. The reason for this is straightforward. Putin's aggression does not stop in Ukraine. Russian spy ships menace our waters. Russian planes enter our airspace. Russian cyber attacks hit our NHS. And just 7 years ago, there was a Russian chemical weapons attack in broad daylight on the streets of Salisbury.
So, I mean, if we can stop laughing for a second, that is an outright pack of lies. And as usual, mainstream press silent on the lies. Look, spy ships menacing our waters, when have they not done that? So here's just one example. In 2021, HMS Defender, a Type 45 destroyer from the Royal Navy, went to the Black Sea in what Russia described as, Russia described us as a hostile NATO state. So HMS Defender traveled 6,000 miles to sail through what Russia considered territorial waters and what was absolutely, in my opinion, designed to be an act of provocation. But this is part of normal life. We do it. The United States does it. Russia does it. There's nothing to see here. And it's the same for Russian aircraft, which, by the way, never enter UK airspace. So that was just a downright lie from Starmer. But this kind of thing is absolutely routine. Even the BBC acknowledges that this is absolutely routine. As for the cybercrime allegation, again, Starmer is lying because he implies that Russian cyber attacks are state sanctioned. Well, if they are, then the Russian state is carrying out attacks against itself because Russia experiences huge levels of cybercrime by criminals based in Russia. And the latest stats here from AAG, or at least AAG have compiled them. The latest stats are from 2022, for example, and they're saying that in the Q1 of 2022, Russians experienced 42.92 million data breaches. Around 250,000 cases of digital fraud each year in Russia. And in Q3 of 2022, Russia was the top country in the world for cybersecurity breaches. So Russia does have a cybersecurity problem, but Starmer's implication that it's state sanction is absolutely unevidenced. And of course, that's not to say that there is no state-sanctioned cyber operations, but this is known as cyber warfare. And again, every country does it. And this is UK Defence Journal just pointing out that Britain is to boost its cyber warfare capabilities. And then finally, the biggest lie of all, the Salisbury poisoning. And my question once again is, where are the Skripals? Because of course, in the recent Don Sturgis inquiry hearings, the Skripals were nowhere to be seen. They've been nowhere to be seen ever since. But if you want to see, once again, I'll mention it, just how full of holes the narrative is on this, the Skripal poisonings. Have a read of The Day of the Skripal on the UK Column website, because this story does not stack up from start to finish. Now, coming back then to Starmer's speech, let's listen to what he said when he was announcing the actual spending increase.
I know people have felt the impact of this conflict through rising bills and prices. But unless Ukraine is properly protected from Putin, then Europe will only become more unstable, and that will hurt us even more. Furthermore, the great lesson of our history is that tyrants like Putin only respond to strength. So today I have announced the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War.
So more lies, the biggest sustained increase in defence spending. What's he doing? He's taking it up to 2.5% from 2.3%. He's named an ambition to reach 3% during the next parliament. So that's a commitment that he never has to meet, or possibly never has to meet. So this is really a nothing announcement. And as Starmer heads over to the United States tomorrow, I'm sort of wondering whether this will satisfy Trump. And of course it won't. But as Brian mentioned on Monday, the issue of recruitment, even if they do spend more money, the issue of recruitment is the big issue around this. And the likelihood of conscription is therefore the bigger issue, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that's exactly where we're going with this. I mean, I'll be talking about this a little bit later in the programme, but you're absolutely right. Not only is there going to be an uplift in the cyber capability, or at least that's what they hope to guarantee by the new recruitment process, which is going to be a sort of one-size-fits-all process in that you apply just to the armed forces and then you get funneled off into whichever direction you're meant to be needed. But the point is the acceleration. This is being sped up by a significant factor so that people can be pushed through the system in a shorter time as 40 days, which is a massive reduction, and therefore means just steamrolling over all the sort of due process that should really be gone through, including a medical that appears to be just a digital affair. So it's absolutely absurd to think that you could put a credible force together by recruiting in such a way. But exactly like you say, I think this looks much more likely to be set up so that it is a mechanism by which people can be conscripted at very short notice. And then, you know, the way that Starmer speaks about this, very much like John Healey was, which played on the news last week, speaking as though the entire audience was born yesterday, and this concept of defence or national security is entirely novel. And first of all, I think actually for Keir Starmer, that really might be the case. He might genuinely think that is it because he has not paid attention to it at all, evidenced by the fact that he is suggesting that things that are exactly like Mike describes, completely part and parcel of life for any armed force, are being conducted. But to what end? And to suggest that X means Y is frankly absurd, particularly given that the limitations on the engagement in Ukraine were set out quite clearly by Putin from the start and have been thereafter. So where is it exactly that he is determining that we are at threat from Russia?
On Monday, Brian was talking about the conscription issue, and he mentioned in passing General Sheriff. I can't remember how to Sheriff. Yeah. Richard Kemp also waded into that discussion. He was even suggesting that immigrants should be conscripted into the military. I mean, how irrational are these people becoming?
Well, I think that there is, I mean, mainly what underpins this is a sense of desperation and panic. I think for people who, like Richard Sheriff or Richard Kemp, that having had a career in the armed forces, I think their concern is that the organisation they once belonged to is falling apart and they want to do something to reverse that trend. I think that is as much of a motivating factor in what they say as their apparent concern for what are being described as threats to national security. So I think that's why that comes out. I think there's a loss of objectivity because of their careers in the armed forces.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. Okay, well, look, let's move on then. And we're going to do a section now on the legislation that's working its way through Parliament at the moment.